Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. I'm Manuel. He is Matt Ford, and he is actually standing right next to me over there. We're doing this from the media center in Köln at the Rhein-Energiestadion, where 1. FC Köln have just reached promotion back to the Bundesliga. Mad scenes here in this crazy stadium. The usual pitch invasion at full time as Köln beat Kaiserslautern 4-0. Matt, I expected a little bit more from Kaiserslautern in this match. I thought at the end of the day, this was a very, very convincing win by Köln. Much easier, I think, than anyone in the city, including people that I spoke to before the match, anticipated. I think there was a lot of fear going into this game that they could mess it up, but never really felt in doubt, did it?
Ultimately not. You're right. Ultimately, a surprisingly and remarkably comfortable afternoon for FC Köln. 4-0 in the end, and back to the Bundesliga at the first attempt. I have to check on my maths a little bit and work out is this the 5th, 6th, 7th or 17th promotion in the last 10 years for Cologne. It seems to happen on a pretty regular basis, such is the nature of this fastwood fine, the elevator club, or the yo-yo, as Germans call yo-yo clubs. There was a moment early on, after 7 minutes, when Kaiserslautern striker Ragnar Acher, who I believe has scored 18 goals this season already, one of the Zweite Bundesliga's top strikers, goes bearing down on goal one-on-one against Martin Schwebel. And at that moment, you sort of think, here we go. This is absolutely classic Cologne behaviour. They're going to make things unnecessarily difficult for themselves. Martin Schwebel stood big, made himself big, blocked the shot, and then even the follow up from a cross a moment later. I think Acher put his header wide, but that was the only moment in the entire afternoon where you thought that Cologne would be in any danger whatsoever. Immediately within minutes, they were onto the attack. A couple of really good chances created for Luca Waldschmidt, neither of which he converted. And even then, there's a little part of me thinking, this is also potentially very familiar. Cologne needed a point, nothing more. They had that point at 0-0, technically speaking, but they were wasting chances. And those thoughts only go through your head because having watched Cologne an awful lot over the past 10 years, they do make things hard for themselves. Nevertheless, it wasn't to be. Within moments, Captain Eric Martel decided to do from centre mid what the strikers, or what Luca Waldschmidt in particular wasn't doing. Gets up for a header in the box and places it well into the far corner. And it was about 10 minutes later or so, Cologne made it 2-0 through, was it Luca Waldschmidt, the second goal? Yeah, it was. Yeah. So really well worked goal. Damien Downs, squaring the ball across. And at that point, Cologne never really looked back. Made it 3-4 in the second half. We also knew that simultaneously in the other game that would mainly affect Cologne, that Elversberg took a 1-0 and then later a 2-0 lead away at Schalke. I think as expected, we expected that Elversberg would win, meaning that Cologne would have to do their own job and get their own points. But remarkably comfortable afternoon in the end.
I just need to add here that I muted myself here when I listed those goal scorers, Matt. So I saw your confused face over there.
I was wondering why I couldn't hear you.
So the goal scorers were Martel, Waldschmidt, Kainz, and Uth. Waldschmidt with the second goal that kind of sealed it. Kainz, of course, had the goal in the second half. There was a missed penalty as well. And I guess that was just kind of like maybe a little bit the time when people thought, ooh, maybe. But as you said, it was so convincing. I think I started writing the newsletter, my 3 thoughts on the game at halftime, and I already started my matchup for Forbes as well about it at halftime. Because it just felt like there wasn't any way that this is going to the result was going to go against Köln. I thought they were really impressive, the way that they handled the situation.
Yes, I thought they were as well. And there's been a clear difference under Friedhelm Funkel as well. It has only been 2 games since the dismissal, since the dismissal of Gerhard Struber, the head coach, and simultaneously Christian Keller, the chief executive for Sport, who were both dismissed following the 1-1 draw here against Jan Regensburg, already relegated.
Yeah.
Or, they were relegated that night, which was a really poor performance.
No.
And Funko, for all his, he's used all his experience. I mean, I believe this is his 7th promotion, personally. His
Yeah.
7th promotion to the from the second Bundesliga to the first, albeit having only taken charge of 2 games for Köln season, but played 2-1 win away in Nuremberg, which was a solid performance from FC. And today was a lot more attacking than we've seen FC pretty much since the start of the season, actually. It has been a really interesting long season when you go back to the start of this season, and I wrote a couple of pieces on the terraces on those newsletters at times. There were a couple of reports from games as well when we had the chance. If we think back, it was a long time ago now, but Cologne were relegated from the Bundesliga and in quite serious financial trouble with serious debts hanging over from the pandemic. I think we even had like a special that we did about FC Köln's situation. And added to that, there was a transfer ban hanging over them with the whole situation regarding the Slovakian player Potočnik. And if you remember the sort of conversation we were having back then, it wasn't can FC go straight back up. It was, are FC even going to be able to stay in a relegation battle by Christmas and just get to January when the transfer ban was lifted and then see what they can do then. So a lot of nerves around the place. And I think we discussed at half time, actually, didn't we, that one potential victim of those nerves was Jonas Orbig, who obviously ended up going to Bayern Munich. And I can only suspect, it seems odd now to be talking about that as an issue, but if we go back to the start of the season, he made a couple of fairly high-profile errors, and admittedly his first game at home here to Hamburg back at the very, very start of the season. But under any other circumstance, you can probably forgive a young goalkeeper for making those sorts of errors, especially right at the start of the season. He'll get used to it or grow into it, it'll be fine. But the nervousness was such, and the fear was such around FC Köln at the time, given the financial problem, given the transfer ban, given the quality of the squad. There was a serious fear around this place of, in the worst case, slipping into a relegation battle, going down and potentially even ending up in 1816 Munich, Kaiserslautern, as we've seen today, actually. Kaiserslautern were also on the brink of Division 5 at one point. So there was a serious fear of that. Things have turned out differently. Gerhard Struber, to an extent, did a very good job. Admittedly, an unspectacular job, and a job which threatened to fall apart by the end, very much so. Only 1 win in 5 in that period before he got sacked. Christian Keller, the chief executive for sport, despite doing great work on the financial and infrastructural side at Cologne, they're pretty much debt-free now as we speak. He's done a really, really good job. Lots of progress made around the club's offices and training pitches as well. The transfer ban has now been lifted. They're backing things on there as well. But he very much tied himself to... Sorry, he stayed following big.
This is what happens when you do this live in a mix in the press room.
they ended up having to make the change at the right time, I think, ultimately. And Friedhelm Folson's come in, had been playing a much more offensively minded 4-2-3-1 formation. And right from the start today, that front four of Thielmann, Kainz, Waldschmidt and Damien Downs were pressing so high. They didn't give Kaiserslautern a moment to breathe. And I think the goals were then fully deserved when they came. It's been an interesting week, though.
It certainly has been. I questioned the appointment of Friedhelm Funkel. I thought it was populist. I thought it was too quick trigger. He did get the job done with 2 very big victories, very convincing victories. So kudos to him. Gerhard Struber too, and I understand the criticism. I think in his 2 previous jobs as well, he failed more or less. New York Red Bulls and then Red Bull Salzburg. Both those jobs ended in tears, didn't it? So he was a bit of a controversial appointment to begin with. He mentioned the transfer ban and ended in January. They made a bunch of signings then. It will be interesting to see what they're going to do going forward, because that's really the next task, isn't it? One of the conversations I had with a member of the staff today here in the stadium was, well, I think we're going to go up, but what happens when we're up? Are we really good enough to stay up? And my response sort of was to that, yeah, probably, because there's a few Bundesliga teams that are probably going to struggle next year as well. But it is an important point, though, isn't it, Matt? Because it does feel like this team needs some serious restructuring. What's going to happen to
It
Friedhelm
does.
Funkel? Mark Uth has to be replaced, right? Like
Tim
work needs to be
Lemperman
done.
has to be replaced.
Oh yeah, you mean maybe one day we'll have a podcast about him.
We can't ignore that elephant in the room. I'm not sure if anyone listening actually was able to follow the news this week in Cologne. It has been a typically tumultuous week. For the build up to a game in which Cologne only needed 1 point to secure promotion, it has been fairly dramatic in that following that 2-1 win over Nuremberg last Friday, and today's Sunday, that was the Friday game last week, so it's been 9 days, 8 or 9 days in between. It's been quite a big gap, and in that time, Tim Lemperle, the Cologne striker, has gone out. Well, he went out celebrating that 2-1 win over Nuremberg, which put FC Köln in pole position. But not only did he go out and celebrate it, he continued celebrating it into the next day on what appears to be a booze cruise on a ship on the River Rhine. And not only that, it's ended up a day drinking. That's become, I think that's everyone's new sort of the new English vocabulary that they've all learned in Cologne this week. Everyone's talking about day drinking. Which is what Tim Lemperle got to. But not only that, it appears to have escalated to such an extent that he got involved in some sort of confrontation, potentially with a Cologne supporter, after this, after these celebrations, which ended up we don't know the exact circumstances, but we know the result. The result of it has been that Tim Lemperle had a broken nose.
Yep. Out because of a broken nose bone.
Yeah, I had to laugh. Yeah, on the transfer market and various other websites, his injury's been listed not as a hamstring or a twisted ankle or calf problems, broken nose.
Having said that, he did warm up.
He was warming up. Yeah,
with a mask on.
The mask on. I feel like opinions on Tim Lemperle's antics this week have been quite split here in Cologne. I feel like it's been 50%. This is disgraceful behaviour. But another 50% thinking, fair enough, that's the sort of player we like.
It fits, doesn't it? The Karnevalsverein with the Carnival, the day drinking. I think that when you told me that bit, I just lost it. It's so funny. And I think it's in English. He said it in English too, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been using the English expression day drinking.
That's remarkable.
Fantastic British export to Germany.
Fantastic. I've been
in fairness, it's been lovely weather here on the River Rhine all week, so can't really blame
you don't have to give me an excuse. I have absolutely no problem with it. Maybe not in the week that you try to secure promotion back to the Bundesliga. I mean, his future is sort of open now, right? Because like I think he's without a contract at the end of the season.
He's off to Hoffenheim, as I believe.
That's not official.
Is it not yet? No. Okay. At the very least, interest. That's the suggestion. Hoffenheim,
it's not official. Wink, wink, snake, shink. No, I mean that adds to many of the many issues that Köln faced though now in the off season, right? We have to replace him as well, right? Because he has been a pretty productive player for them.
Yeah, and the question is going to be who's going to be making those decisions. Friedhelm Funkel won't be staying on his coach. It really is just a temporary thing. And yeah, you know, they're also without a chief executive to sport, and there are internal club elections coming up in September. So, as much as Cologne are up back in the Bundesliga, the circumstances surrounding it are not quite ideal. And the opinions seem very much to differ regarding particularly Christian Keller's dismissal. I personally, and it is very much a personal opinion, I do tend to come down on the side that I think on balance it probably was the wrong decision. I'm not convinced that I suspect they might regret that. I understand why in the short term he had very much tied his own fate to that of Gerhard Struber by backing him so publicly. He'd made some of his sporting decisions in his time in Cologne hadn't always been totally optimal. The relationship with Stefan Baumgart wasn't brilliant. The appointment of Timo Schultz wasn't ideal. His appointment of Gerhard Struber in the end didn't work out. Nevertheless, as I mentioned, he has put into motion processes in terms of infrastructure, debt refinancing, and other managerial issues around the club. He has, put things on a decent footing, and Cologne in a much better financial and structural situation now as they were when they got relegated, and a lot of that is down to Christine Keller. I think they could have done well by giving them a year to continue that work in the Bundesliga, but that ship
Matt,
has sailed down the Rhine with Tim Lempler on it.
is he the reason why we have to walk around the corner and up the stairs to use the bathroom in the press room?
Suspect it might be genuinely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, justified firing, man.
yeah, yeah. I think Manny, you said this was your first visit here in about 6 years, and they've moved the press box in that time. So Manny's been having a typically first world problem journalist moan about the location of the press box.
Well, there's a bathroom right here that we're not allowed to use because it's a VIP.
Yeah, we have to go
bathroom.
around to use it. Yeah.
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 Anyway,
we get treated terribly. I mean, we get the violins
animals,
out.
Animals.
Yeah.